DeFi Kingdoms, where you can summon heroes, trade with other players, quest, and fight challenging enemies in a fantasy world brought to life in pixel art animation. Command your legion, claim your legacy.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's AMA with DeFi Kingdoms. Excited to be here as always. We are going to have a little bit of a smaller crew today, but we have Hubert and that's really all we need. Just kidding. Love you guys. But Magnus and Beetle are head down in some code. And Winston is testing away, as well as actually, I think, potentially driving at the moment. So a little bit smaller crew, but we are going to get it rocking and rolling. So first off, we are going to start out with just a couple of updates, and then we will move into some questions. For the first update, we are going to go over to Hubert. Sachet posted an interesting Discord announcement yesterday with some preemptive patch notes. Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So, I think most of you probably have seen what Bullen was referring to, the game updates, which included an updated list of the trait effects, as well as some other balance changes that will kind of come along with the release of that. We're still in the process of just working out a few last bugs and double checking the balance on things, but it was this last weekend that we just had where the creators were able to test things out. We got a lot of great feedback during that time. I appreciate everybody that participated in that. I was able to catch a few of those streams and it was really cool to watch. Really appreciate the excitement and how many people were engaged in it. So really appreciate all of you guys. And yeah, the feedback that we got was great. We made some adjustments based on that and are looking forward to bringing that all to you guys. But yeah, just as far as when, we'll have more updates there once, we feel confident with the remaining bugs are all addressed. So.
Awesome.
That's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciated. And then jumping over to Dreamer, one of our partners had a pretty big event occur. Oh, I'm not doing that math. Within the last 24 hours.
Double click. Wait, what math are you trying to do?
Do we need to crowdfund a new mouse for you? I was trying to do the math to how long it had been since 8 p.m. Eastern yesterday, and then I figured out that I'm not. It's been 18 hours. I actually did do the math, but
got it. Yeah, so it's exciting. We've been kind of on hold and standby for all of our IP and assets and everything Serendale for a while. We heard about this back in January, and we're excited because the partner chain that they are have merged with, I guess, Finchia, they had some unique connections there, namely the large messaging app in Japan and other places in the region, Line, and I think they had a couple other dApps there too. But Kaya did do their, I guess, hard fork or their launch of the official launch of their actual chain, and I believe that means the sunsetting of the Klaytn chain. How this impacts us is we didn't have to redeploy anything yet. There shouldn't be a need to, but you never know with these things. Some things might come up. So we'll be working through that. The token itself, I think what we were told, and I'll actually ask Fox to correct me if he wants to add or if I say anything wrong. But I think at this point, the solution they are going with, although it might require some updates on naming if the tokens don't move back to their original chain and kind of get the naming fixed through the bridge itself, we might have some things in the UI to update just to make sure that instead of Clay, it's, I believe the token is Kaya. So be patient with us a little bit there, but it's great progress. What comes next is everything related to what is on that chain. We need a lot of discussions with them to see how they want to support any incremental features, how we want to co-market, new business relationships, with our focus kind of really leaning in on Line initially to see how we might be able to collaborate and work together, even if it's on like the IP co-marketing advertising side. But there could be some other options there too. But big day for them. It's been a long wait for us, but I actually thought it would take longer than this. So I'm glad that it happened. Fox, anything to add on the update, how it affects us, or any other details that we got from our live update with them earlier this week that I didn't share?
Yeah, no, I mean it's exciting. Sort of like a blending of two technologies. This is the first step. Well, actually, there have been a lot of steps leading up to this, but this is the first major like go live step, and that's exciting for them. They had a FAQ that they shared with us, and we've reviewed that. And there's really not a lot for us or for any of you guys to do. It's sort of automatic. Basically, all of the contracts that we have deployed are going to still be there. All the code, all the state of those contracts is going to still be there. It's just like any other fork would be, essentially. And like all of the bridges, all the assets and things like that will still work. There could be some interesting things for a while with like naming, where if you have Clay tokens that have been bridged to other places, like DFK Chain, for example, it might be called something in like certain like interfaces. It could be called Clay still for a while until sort of everywhere updates all of their naming, but it's still the same token under the covers. If you bridge it to like the main chain again, it'll be called Kaya. So really it's just all the same. You don't really have to do anything. If your RPCs are having issues, they did change the RPC a few weeks ago, and I think we put out an announcement about that. But other than that, there's really not much for anyone to do.
Yeah, just real quick on the RPC front. So we did announce a couple weeks ago that our RPC URL was updated from Klaytn to Kaya. One thing that we did notice last night, and I don't know if it's been fixed as of this morning, but at least as of last night, for all of you Rabby users, the Rabby default RPC was not updated, so it wasn't working. But in the meantime, you can add a custom RPC to Rabby, add our RPC, and you're back up and running. So I imagine that RPC will also get updated, but obviously that's up to Rabby and outside of our control. So in the meantime, just add a custom RPC, add ours, you're good to go. But yeah, definitely, we'll keep any changes flowing out to you guys as we need to, and if anything changes, we'll let you know on that as well. Anything else on the Kaya front? All right.
I don't know if I should say it, but there's a lot of cool things that are happening with that upgrade. They are starting to be more and more integrated with like Line, for example. There's a lot of exciting things that brings to like the Web3 world, and a lot of potential opportunity for things we might do in the future. So just stuff that like we've been sort of looking at, but no real plans or announcements yet. Just there's some interesting synergies there that I should call out.
I'll say that we got some events coming up. One is Token in Singapore, and I believe they're going to be there. Their headquarters for Klaytn was there. So we're going to be syncing with them, going to be using that as an opportunity, and likely co-marketing and doing some other things. So initially, the plan with Klaytn was one of the big drivers was a strategic user acquisition partnership, where they're in a part of the world that we really want to get access to, especially with more native gameplay features. Sorry, my hair looks ridiculous from the hat back on. And that is picking back up where it left off, and almost in a stronger way because of that new connection to Japan and everywhere that line is. So looking to explore that. That's still the long-term goal, not only with like redundancies in our chains, good partners, fitting the brand and everything, but we really want to grow a presence in Asia, Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Thailand. All of our partners seem focused on it in some way, including Kaya. Kaya has a little bit more of like a native like strategic advantage, But we see Avalanche looking at that. We see Metis looking at that. It feels really good to also have another partner there as we start to move the needle and build that momentum of community and user acquisition in that region. I think it'll be really big for our user base, for our gameplay, with a group that the title, the genre, and everything really caters to. So just kind of bringing it back to that original plan. We didn't know how things would unfold, with FTX shortly after, and the restructuring with Klaytn, and then their bridge hack that they had, even though it wasn't theirs, but it affected them. With this partnership and everything, our eyes are still focused on how to use the technology the best we can. But outside of that, how does this partnership and this presence and what we can build there and how we can co-market, how does it move the needle with users that drives pretty much everything? So just wanted to remind people of that. We're happy that this is back up and running. It maybe hasn't been as immediately impactful as we had hoped, almost 2 years ago. But that potential is still there, and it is still different in many ways from our other partners out there. So we should be excited about it and hope that we can make the best with this partnership.
Yeah. Also, Dreamer, you should turn on your camera again and throw your hat to me. Oh, I got it. Okay. But no, I wanted to just also mention, they have some cool things with Line, where, like they might even do further integrations with blockchain things inside of Line. So I'm excited about that stuff. And yeah, sorry about the hat. I am a dad, so I have my dad jokes. Anyways, back to you, Bolan.
I'm still recovering from that. Wow, that was fantastic. Anyway, yeah, super excited for for everything that marks and the future there as well. One last quick update. Hubert mentioned the creator PvP preview weekend that we did this past weekend. Actually, I have a couple questions related to it, so we'll talk more about it. But just wanted to say shout out to all of our creators who jumped in, and I think one guy streamed like 17 hours on his own channel as well as being on other channels. They were super active. There's a ton of content out there. If you haven't caught it, you should definitely go check it out. But huge shout out to our creators for getting involved and having a lot of fun with it, putting together a tournament on their own. It was a really fun weekend, and I hope that you all enjoyed it and getting a little sneak peek. All right, cool. So going into some questions. There's actually a few questions regarding the front end, and I have been deputized to speak for the front end folks temporarily this week with very specific answers provided to me. But if anybody has anything they want to add to any of these answers or anything, obviously, please feel free. So can we get the ability to select hero abilities without them having to be off hunt cooldown and with at least 25 stamina, more or less just being able to kind of freely switch around those abilities? That is on the list. I don't know, Hubert, do you have anything more you want to add to that?
I am sorry, I was distracted by the chat. Add to...
It's understandable. Being able to change hero loadouts at any time.
At any time.
Not at literally any time, because not when they're like in a combat, but like right now you can only change them if they are eligible to go on a hunt.
Right.
Opening that up a little bit.
Yeah, I think as a long-term goal, that makes sense to have skill selection be its own thing you can do just at any time. I would say, but yeah, I don't see us really implementing that right away. But I'd say, yeah, that is something that I would see us doing eventually.
Awesome, thank you, sir. Regarding the in-game charts at the marketplace, will it come back or not? We do still want to replace those charts. So the provider that we were getting them from is no longer an option, but we do want to take a look at some alternatives and try to bring them back. That one's honestly really mostly just a matter of priority. With everybody as head down on PvP as they are, it just has not been something we've taken the time to do. But I know we talked about the fact that we would like to bring them back. Yes. Let's see. One last front end question, and then I'll stop talking for a minute. The expeditions menu, and if it will show the expedition IDs, and separately also if it would show the total ready to claim and the total ready to process. So on the first part, expedition IDs, much like quest IDs, aren't meant to be user facing. For the average user, they don't do anything or have any use case. So we probably will not add them because it would just clutter the UI. However, in each expedition's UI, like for that particular expedition, it does show the claimable iterations and the number ready to process for that expedition. So that second part is in there just in each individual expedition. All right, cool. That ends for now the front end questions. So we're going to jump back to Hubert for a minute here. Thoughts on having the hero card show what stat the stone hits, potentially marked with a color, when summoning with a stone. Yeah, that. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with that's pretty easy to do for everything except for the chaos stones. And then when we get to the chaos stones, then we'd have to kind of do some extra steps to like make it work. Probably involve putting new fields in our API and things like that. So I'm not sure I want to do that. I think it would be kind of a good amount of work, but there may be some things we can do at least. I think there's other factors as well that will kind of apply to your stats. Like if you use tiers with the heroes that we're summoning it, that also will apply, and we don't show like where those apply to either. So like even just doing kind of like a little math approach to figure out which things are what on the front end without really using the API, like there's kind of a risk of things not being quite correctly represented. So I don't really see us doing that, but we can maybe talk about it and see if there's an easy way to do it that's not going to cause a lot of work to make it happen.
Awesome. While I still have you, any thoughts on when a hunt might go to Gaia?
Yeah, it's hard to say. We've kind of been waiting for the Kaya merger to happen, and also we are, we did, there was the bridge hack that happened over there as well, which kind of made us a little bit cautious to do too many things over there for the time being. But with things kind of developing as they are, I think we can look at that again. It likely would be a new hunt if we did that. So it's something that's not like prioritized right now with us being all hands on deck on PvP. Or we could also move a hunt over there, but I just want to, don't expect anything to happen like right away, I'd say.
Thank you, Hubert. Let's see. This is one actually that I will kick off as well. Batch bridging, hero batch bridging. When I guess is the first part of the question. Are we working on it or planning to? Are there technical restrictions we can't get around? So there's really two ways to look at this question. The first part is being able to bridge multiple heroes in a single transaction. That part does have various technical limitations, but the main one is there's gas limits and transaction size limits that impact how much data can be sent. And looking at hero bridging, it isn't just heroes. It's it's the hero plus their pet, their equipment, their visages, like all of those NFTs are bundled. which means they're taking up more size in a bridge transaction. The second way, though, is to queue transactions, as we've done in other places with our multi-queue system. Being able to queue up multiple heroes and then just have a series of transactions rather than select one, bridge it, select another, bridge it. We do love our multi-queue. That is actually something that's been being worked on recently. So I won't say too much yet and steal anybody's thunder, but that is something that we have actually actively been working on the second part, to have the multi-queue for bridging. Fox, I see your camera on, so I'm going to assume you want to speak.
See, isn't it nice having the option to turn cameras on? I love it. I don't have to raise my hand. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not really directly necessarily answering the question, but there's some cool things we're doing right now with the bridge that we're building for Metis. And one of those things that we've explored more as a part of the general PvP stuff that we're building is sort of like compressing structs. And a lot of this was Hubert, because he's an expert at electrical engineering and did a lot of like special coding for like really, really small and memory strapped type things. So he's really good at this type of stuff. So he helped us to rewrite a lot of things to just basically stuff more data into smaller amounts of bytes. And that is a thing that we're considering applying that same like technology to bridge messages as well. So that's something that I'm planning to actually work on next week, and could potentially allow us to fit more throughput and also for less gas, theoretically, because it'll be a smaller message size. So just more of a, we've got some things that we're working on that should help with that too.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Speaking of bridging, actually, and Fox, we're going back to you. Synapse has gotten a little less responsive to tickets for Heroes Gone Astray on the bridge. Do we have a backup plan?
Okay, yeah. And then he just ran away. But no, yeah. So we're, as I mentioned, like we're creating a new bridge entirely from the ground up, specifically for Metis, using Layer Zero's new V2 technology. And it's been really cool. And they have a lot of really cool things built around their ecosystem. Like they have an Explorer that lets you view messages and even like retry messages from the Explorer. And it's been great. A lot of things to learn as we go. But we're sort of doing it as an experiment. We want to see, how it plays out, how it works, once we get a lot of actual like users using it. But we are building this bridge in such a way that it could be applied across any realms, not just specifically from our existing realms into Metis, but it could be other places as well. So, in terms of like, is there options? Yeah, there's always options. We can always build things. And we do try to build things to be reusable in the future as well. And that's the case with this. So there is that. As for the Synapse stuff in particular, I know they have a support system with some tickets. We have things that we built in from like our side to kind of allow like admins to help out and sort of unstick things. But it's really tricky because if we were to do that and then the actual original message were to become unstuck and sent through, then it could create like duplicate data. So we really can't use those as effectively. And it's more of a thing where the best way is really just to get Synapse to sort of like respond to the ticket and push those through as they should be. It's the most secure way of doing it. So that's the way that we do recommend. So options, yes, we have options. And we'll see how it plays out with the bridges that we're building using Layer Zero. And yeah, I guess that's all I'll say on that for now.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll just add to that is with the Synapse side of things, we are also following up with them internally as well to make sure that we keep progress moving. Cool. Let's see. Oh, it's another question for me. I'm going to talk a lot this AMA apparently. So there's a post or a question submitted to the AMA to the talk site. I'm gonna kind of summarize it. It was pretty lengthy, but essentially about why the backstage power up is not granting access to the PvP testing, and if the creator weekends give an advantage to those creators who are currently experiencing it. So the backstage pass and combat testing grounds have always been a place for the player to test their heroes and strategies and equipment, not really a place that we use for public balance testing. Like that's meant to be a player testing area, not our testing area. Similarly to how we don't put new classes in the testing ground first. In terms of any advantages, first and foremost, the initial public launch is like no stakes friendly matches, so there isn't really much to gain an advantage on. There's just nothing to win on day one of launch. But more so, these weekends specifically targeted content creators who are showing everyone what they're getting to see. Also, so it's not even like a behind the scenes testing; they're doing it on stream. All in all, we have additional things planned for pre-launch, which may include expanding the scope a little bit. We've got some fun stuff planned, and we'll share some more details on that as it gets closer. These 2 weekends were a fun way to thank our creators for all of the time they spend making DFK content, as well as get content into Twitter and YouTube on our upcoming PvP. There's now a ton of awesome content. Paye is actually working on clipping some of that content as well for our own uses. Thank you, creators, for allowing us to. But also work on attracting the interest of some other higher profile creators as well. So it's really just meant to be like a really fun way for people to start getting involved. But this isn't the only thing that we have planned. And it's also something pretty common in game development to have kind of those preview weekends. So stay tuned for the rest of what we have planned because I'm really excited for it. And it's going to be awesome. Cool. Going to the next question, we're going to jump back over to Hubert for a few minutes here. In-game chat for PvP would be GG, which is not a question, but we're going to interpret it as a question.
Yeah. We want there to be a way for players to be able to interact with each other when they're doing PvP besides just attacking each other. So we do have some things in mind of things that we can do. Going as far as in-game chat, it does lead to some a kind of a list of different things that we have to be considerate about, like moderation and things like that. So I think our initial push for what we will be doing is more like what you might see in some other like online competitive games. I'm just going to use like Magic Arena or Hearthstone as examples where there is a little bit of interactability, like some pre-selected choices you could make, things like that. That's kind of the nature of like what we're trying to do in the short term. And then we're going to keep talking about in-game chat as a more of a long-term goal, I think, but I don't see us being able to get that like right away.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Will the forthcoming equipment shop adopt static prices or a similar dynamic pricing scheme used by the vendor? If something else, can you elaborate? And whether static or dynamic, can you outline your thought process on determining the starting prices of gear?
Yeah, so it will be dynamic. And for gear in particular, I did kind of take a different angle with the settings than I did for the things that are in the vendor right now. Like one thing I foresee happening is that since once the shop goes online, there's going to be we're going to stop like giving free gear for people to use on the hunts. So with that happening, everyone's going to kind of need to have gear if they want to keep hunting. Otherwise, they'll be using level 1 gear, and yeah, good luck. But so I guess with that in mind, there's kind of going to be, I think, a rush to that shop is my anticipation. I mean, it could be wrong, but so we kind of set it up so that it doesn't grow quite as rapidly as like some of the ones do in the like the golden egg, for example. It doesn't the price doesn't grow as rapidly, but also set it up so it also like the price doesn't go down nearly as rapidly either. So um, should be, you know, even if only a few are purchased like a day or even one per day, like to kind of keep the price in, you know, wherever it kind of has settled at that point. Um, and it'll take kind of multiple days of nobody buying any of that item for it to kind of really start like dropping in price. So that's kind of where it's set up right now. And I can't remember off the top of my head where I set the numbers. They're kind of different for each of the levels. There's going to be gear for level 3 and level I believe 6 and level 10. So like those each item will have its own price settings, and they also have their own like it's kind of tiered. Like the lower level ones are not as expensive as the higher level ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Hubert. What do you think of this idea? A special summoning stone that can be used to have a chance at upgrading a hero's basic equipment.
Yeah, that is probably too complicated and also not ideal. Like if it's like upgrade your basic equipment so it's usable at level 10, for example, then you know we're also adding level resetting. Does that mean that equipment is set for level 10 when your level reset? And so on. Like yeah, I don't see that happening. Sorry.
That works. Speaking of equipment, thoughts on having an equipment offering system where we can sacrifice equipment for a chance within its category to receive a random equipment piece of the same category with random rarity. It's kind of like dark summoning for equipment.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. That sounds like it could get pretty complicated very quickly. You know, we do already have plans for burning equipment, with it kind of turning into an equipment dust type of uh, like currency, and then you can use that to do enchanting once we have the crafting system out, and also likely be used in other recipes as well. So, I mean, in a way, your equipment when it's kind of reached its end of life will have a purpose beyond that. But doing something where it's kind of like a roulette for new equipment, you know, I suppose you could kind of consider crafting as having elements of that, in that you know you can get a good result or not as good result from crafting. So since the you know that dust will be used in that way, I think you can maybe consider it that way. But yeah, probably not like a direct trade in for something else random.
Cool. Thank you, sir. We're going to give you just a short break and then we'll be back to you, so don't go anywhere. But we are going to jump back over to Dreamer for a moment. Is Mythic Swap still a thing? Are we letting it fade away? What are our thoughts?
I figured out how to turn on my camera without my mouse. So Mythic Swap, we're almost coming up on a year since we first talked about it at an event, and I'll kind of recap what we've done in the last year. After we announced the idea and concept, we reached out to a number of chains and got a couple offers. They weren't as juicy as we had liked. I think the timing last year wasn't the best to consider something like this with regulation. Eventually, our lawyers pretty much said you should halt any type of a token, private sale, or anything like that. And even launching this, given the definition of an exchange was expected by pretty much anybody that had been paying attention or involved to come out. We then heard back in like January that like they never did it. I guess they're not going to do it. So I guess you guys are fine. And we're like, you were really worried at one point, and now you're just like not. So when we went to resume, that's when we got the deal going with Metis. We are full steam ahead. You know, there's a very big deal, the biggest deal we've ever had, and it is funding not only the development of PvP but other ongoing features. So with our limited development team, who's already working over what we are essentially able to pay and everything through the grant and be sustainable. We haven't been focusing on Mythic Swap. I think we actually had some trickle progress for a while, but people are still interested. So at Bitcoin Nashville talked about it with a number of people. There's a lot of Bitcoin layer 2s out there, some of which this kind of technology could work very well with. Mythic Swap, I believe, will come to fruition when the stars align. We find the right place to launch it initially, and those that see the value in it relative to others out there and provide some collaborative funding. And there's a lot of exciting things we can do with it. In the same way, there's a lot of other options on deals we can get with the third and fourth full realms. There are other ideas out there that I won't share here because I'll probably get in trouble because I'm always having ideas that are turned down, which isn't a bad thing because then we get to the best ideas. But Mythic Swap is definitely one of those that is applying the technology we have to address a different audience and provide a different level of revenue streams. It's in our back pockets. We have a really good focus right now. It's good for the game. It's good for the players. It's good for profitability. It's good for marketing. Mythic Swap is another really good idea. Just not the best timing last year with the feedback that we had gotten, and then became more on the back burner when deal with Metis and Coliseum came up. So that's about as transparent as I can be. I really am excited about Mythic Swap. I do think that with DeFi in this market, with new technology, the timing of launch is almost everything. And the other part of that equation is where you launch. We could just go crazy and stop everything and prioritize Mythic Swap without necessarily funding or a lot of as much confidence in the ROI on those efforts. But it seems like it'd be a pretty big risk and not the most intelligent in terms of the deal that we have currently, and some pretty tight deadlines to keep up with and make. So that's the update on that. Definitely not walking away from it. If it's up to us, things will align and it'll come out and we'll deploy it. We're not just being like, never mind. But so far, we're not going to force things, and it hasn't been the one that has aligned like others have. So doing our best to focus on the main goals within DeFi Kingdoms from the development studio of Kingdom Studios, while trying to juggle everything out there to make sure we find the best thing to work on with the time that we have. I think we're doing a good job in it so far. So please don't misinterpret that as, never mind, we'll never do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Dreamer. Let's see. I am going to caveat, I am reading this question as it was written. These are not my words. Win PvP testing for us peasants. So I alluded in the previous answer to some additional plans. It's a little too early to tell you exactly what those plans are, but we have plans. Stay tuned. It's going to be exciting. Really, really looking forward to PvP. It's going to be really cool. Let's see. Switching back over to Hubert here for a while. It looks like the number of greater stones seems to be going up by 50% every dual season. Is that expected, or do we have plans to combat it or make tweaks or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I mean, we always need to, just with duels or any of our reward systems, we do try to pay attention to how that impacts the economy, and if it looks like maybe there's too many being minted right now or not being used enough or things like that, I think we are interested in that, like seeing that behavior and see if there's anything that we need to change. So I think we can maybe take that behind the scenes and talk about it later. But right, I could say just at this exact moment, there's not any immediate plans to change it, like before this question was asked anyway, but we will take a look at it.
Good deal. Thank you. Thank you. Thoughts on stopping minting eternal pages and potentially increasing gold loot on training quests instead?
Yeah, I've seen that question asked before. Maybe it's been asked in the AMAs before, or at least the stop minting part, not the necessarily instead do gold. And maybe there's something that we could do in terms of like replacing that, so that at least until we get to the point where we can do the page 10 tournaments, there's not just it's not like continuing to inflate. But yeah, we haven't really that hasn't really been much of our focus in the past while. So I can't really say we would or wouldn't do anything like that, but I can say at least I've kind of thought about at least what other things could we do instead. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Will PvP tokenomics be shared before launch?
I'd say probably. As we get closer to things, I think there's, we'd want to explain, everything that we've built, what we're still building, and how we're all planning for it to all work. So yeah, I think there's quite a bit there that we'll be sharing. So look forward to that. But yeah, nothing to share, like no details right now.
Awesome. Do LP tokens or power token sorry, go ahead. Sorry, my bad. I was on a different tab.
Yeah, I figured. I'd just say, like, a reminder, the launch of PvP and Coliseum there's a lot of aspects to this. The most simple is we have 3 milestones with our partner. So we're going to essentially have 3 launches. The base feature won't be complete until all 3. So I would say before phase 1, we will probably do our best to be transparent about the tokenomics as it relates to phase 1. I would say tokenomics are going to be the most impacted by phase 2, which is tournaments. And so please expect some info probably near launch for phase 1, but a lot of the info is going to come from between phase 1 and phase 2 as well as we work on it. Because if we kind of recap the vision of PvP on Metis through the Coliseum, and I have to be cautious here because there's like 2 or even 3 major systems that we haven't even told anybody about within it. So I'm going to be really careful, but phase 1 is getting to PvP through private matches. There's a lot of things to make that more fun than it sounds, but essentially it's kind of like a soft launch of PvP. A lot of these things are going to be tested and balanced, not only in the gameplay itself, but on the tokenomic side, incentive behavior and collaboration with all those involved, not just those playing. I'll leave it just at that for now. That then leads into our own like Kingdom Studios DeFi Kingdoms tournament series. What does that look like? What are the rewards? How does it qualify? The frequency and everything. And then that sets up for hosted tournaments where people can come in and through UI, ideally, launch their own tournaments. We don't know exactly how that's going to look because we haven't built our own yet. So a little open-ended there. So please be not only excited about learning things like tokenomics as it relates to PvP, but also open-minded that as we continue to build more, as we get feedback, some of these things might adjust. Now they likely won't impact tokenomics as much, but the picture will continue to be like built or developed throughout this build time. If we look at the initial launch as like, all right, everything's complete, full tokenomics known and launch and out the gates, this is a 3-part launch on like the base features there. So just want to be transparent there. It is more of like a phase 1 beta launch, phase 2 beefiest, and phase 3 cherry on top. And we'll be getting tokenomics updates along the way as a lot of these really hefty systems we haven't talked about motivating, incentivizing, and combining private tournament and third party. They'll be coming as they come. So don't expect just one update, but we'll try to be as transparent as possible.
Also phase 1.1, 1.2, 1.2. There's gonna be some extra phases that we've slipped in there as well. All right, let's see. So okay, there we go. Sorry, I lost my place for a second. Do LP tokens or power token rewards provide additional XP to heroes questing in the gardens in those pools? If not, could this be considered to additionally reward liquidity providers, maybe linear to power token rewards, meaning more XP for those heroes?
Yeah, so it doesn't work that way now. And while I guess it certainly could, it's maybe a little bit more tricky than you might think to do something like that. Um, I generally am not that keen on the idea. I think it's, you get those extra rewards from gardening come, as like that is your reward for being an LP staker. Um, I think the gardening experience rewards are already set at a pretty decent level, and to like increase that more, uh, I I think that's kind of a risk there, especially if it was on unbounded more. So likely we don't see us doing that.
Yeah, definitely brings in a little bit of a like pay for XP kind of perspective. Let's see. How/when are equipment debuffs applied? So, for example, speed. Would a speed debuff from equipment be applied before or after hitting the 120 speed threshold for diminishing returns?
So it would be after. So the speed debuff is kind of considered just like a haste or a slow in terms of how it's applied. So you have your natural speed that comes from your agility, and that's that does have diminishing returns coming once if your speed can go above 120. So after that's calculated, anything that changes your speed beyond that from like haste slow or other effects would it wouldn't impact the diminishing returns amount that you got from just your agility.
Cool. Good deal. Thank you, sir. Why switch out the gore bow for the gore longbow rather than changing the gore bow itself?
Good question. Yeah, that was something that we did talk about doing. Just having future gore bows just have different stats on them and not doing a whole new NFT. I think the main concern there was that it just kind of creates a search difficulty, and if you're looking at the different gore bows, for someone that's maybe new, they would maybe they have an option of one that doesn't have the speed debuff, one that does, and they don't realize it, like that is it's very different. So that was kind of our biggest concern, is it could cause confusion, and also this wouldn't be like changing previously minted gorbos, like those have their stats kind of set on the NFT, and we weren't planning to adjust that or try to adjust that or anything like that. Um, so we felt it was just cleanest to separate them as a completely different item, and then just making essentially sunsetting the Gorbo in terms of its minting anymore. There won't be any further ones minted once the change is made. So that'll kind of make it a little bit more of a legacy item. I expect some people will be looking out for that because it is generally more powerful than the Gore Longbow without the haste or without that speed debuff. But we're also getting closer to turning durability on, so I guess there's going to be kind of a unless people are just constantly restoring their Gorbos, I think their supply will just start to go down over time.
Awesome. Thank you for the insight. Let's see. I got two more for you and one more for me. When is the team gonna show us Mad Boars versus Bad Mother Cluckers? Spectator mode, or a mode players can play just for fun, to pit the two NPC mobs against each other.
That's an interesting question. That would probably pretty interesting. Like I'd want to see that. I don't know how long that would take Beetle to do, but I imagine it would be quite a bit. So I when you say when, I'd say far away in the future, probably.
Cool idea. Definitely some work. Let's see. I'm gonna take mine real quick, and then we'll finish out with this last question for Hubert. When updated priority list? We are getting very close to needing one, so I think at least one more thing, getting traits crossed off the list, and then yeah, it's probably about time to look at an updated priority list. So very excited for that as well. Stay tuned. All right, last question of the day. Are we going to have turn clocks for PvP?
Yes, we will. Right now we're planning on turn clocks that can be customizable in terms of like how many seconds you'll have before the turn clock reaches its endpoint. We're also talking about like a bank time of turn, like also having banked time. So like if you exceed the turn clock, you might have like a minute of banked time or something like that that it would draw from before there could be any like penalties or anything like that. But all those things are also going to be customizable. So um, people could create a match that doesn't have any banked time, or if they, want to do something friendly with friends and don't want to, be putting on the pressure of a clock, they could, set the timer pretty high. I think we may even have an option to turn it off entirely. Um, so that's kind of the general plan for things like tournaments in the future. Things like a turn clock is going to be a necessity. I mean, you can expect that. We definitely want to avoid people just trolling each other with just taking long time on their turns. So, and I think also just the pressure of having a shorter time clock makes the fight more interesting. People make more mistakes. You have to pay more attention, and I think it's a little bit more engaging that way. Looking forward to that. I know we don't have that quite ready yet, so it wasn't shown during our last weekend testing here, but it is something that we're actively working on right now.
Nice. I lied. I'm going to pull one last question from chat. Any thoughts on allowing mirror battles in PvP?
I guess that means like one person picks the heroes and the other person just uses a copy of the same heroes, is what that means.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting idea, and also people have been doing that in our testing since we just kind of allowed you to select any heroes. Um, but I don't know that we kind of make that a mode anytime in the near future, probably. Um, I kind of the whole idea of the game in general is you have to bring your own heroes to the table. So if we just take that part out of the equation, it kind of kind of breaks the whole thing that we're building. So I think we'd have to be pretty careful about doing that if we were to do it. And I could see it maybe happening for mirror fights because at least somebody is bringing the heroes. But yeah.
Awesome. Sorry to put you on the spot with that one. But cool. Really appreciate you. Let's see. We can go around the horn for final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up with. I feel like it's been a while since Dreamers bullished us, I think. So we're going to wrap up with him and let him bullish us. He always struggles to not bullish early anyway, so we'll just make him the final one. From my end, thank you as always to everyone who is listening, everyone who will listen later, everybody who's up here taking the time out of their day to answer questions, and everybody who submits questions. As of now, we are officially caught up on our questions, so make sure you submit some more so that we can answer them next week. But really, really appreciate you guys. Love this community. Looking forward to another creator weekend this weekend, previewing some PvP, and then also some more plans that we will be unveiling in time. But just really love this community. I really just cannot express how excited I am for this next phase. And I appreciate all of you. Let's go over to Fox next, and then we'll go Hubert and Dreamer.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks. Just want to say thank you to everyone. We spend a lot of effort and time and thought on this project, and it's a lot of fun to build. I love building things, but it's more fun when you build things that other people are going to be using and enjoying, and that's what this project is. So I'm excited to be here and to be building things for all of you. Thank you.
Hubert, any final thoughts?
We're all very heads down doing the work right now. If we sound tired or see there's not very many people on the stage, it's just maybe take it as a good sign that we're just we're really pushing forward on PvP right now. So very excited to see that come to fruition. All the work that we're doing is it's really cool. I'm so glad that we could be at this point where like, people are able to actually see the fruits of our labor and get excited for what's to come. So looking forward to what's coming. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you. And Dreamer, take us home.
Home is where DFK is. Yeah, I had a call with somebody yesterday that's been a longtime supporter of DeFi Kingdoms, who also has like a tremendous amount of influence and talks to a lot of projects and everything. And he kind of said that I saw a lot of the things you guys are working on. What is going to be like the main catalyst for DeFi Kingdoms to come back? And I took a step back and I thought about that after that discussion, because I gave a really good pitch and I convinced him. And at the end, he's like, I see the vision. I see what you mean, how PvP ties together all the systems, how it could be addressing new players and streamers. And it kind of has something for everybody, whether you're a player or I guess I have to be careful in what I say. So it was successful. But then I started to like think about, we're really ahead of our time, if that's the saying. As you look around at different points in time in the last 3 years, there was different layers and levels of competition. We're in a phase now where it seems like a lot of our competition, which I know a lot of other game builders out there in Web3 look at each other as competition. We always have looked at each other as like working on this together and would love to work together and we should work together and please work together with us, but not everybody has that mindset. However, we are seeing more and more people close up shop or have issues with their team or founders or legal or not delivering on certain things or continuing to kick the can and promise. And yeah, maybe we haven't had a perfect run in everything we've done, but man, am I proud of the way that we've approached every market that we've been in, every deal that we've gotten, and every feature that we've released, tested, and sometimes when gotten feedback to, updated or fixed. And I think with every bit of news that is positive, it's good for us when there's a successful game out there because we're also a game in the space. It's good for everybody. Rising tides lift all ships. Whenever there is negative news about somebody maybe closing shop or not delivering or whatever, well, now we're sticking out even more because we are delivering. So really what we need is to continue to do what we're doing, to play, to build, to invite others, to amplify, to create content, and push forward. And if we keep doing that, we can be nothing but bullish. It's only a matter of time for the market, for the elections, for regulation, for all the things to come into place. Meanwhile, we're continuing to do what it seems like many others aren't, in terms of persevering and persistence and continuing to build and leaning into their original vision. I see a lot of other visions out there kind of bouncing around, gaming side. All right, everybody's excited about gaming. All right, memes are hot. Everybody's over here. All right, people are afraid of this or this chain or that chain or regulation or in and out or up and down, dump and pump. Where, as Hubert said, we just kind of have our heads down, continuing to build. Now we have our heads up, trying to pay attention to make sure that we're staying relevant and going in the right direction. But man, am I excited for today, for the past, and for the future, because no matter what happens outside of this team, whether good or bad, I see very few things that are just bad for us. If other people are having success, it's good for us. It's good for the space, and we want to work with them, and we want similar success when people are ready for our product and willing to, take the time to get to know it. And a huge draw is gameplay, and even bigger draw is well incentivized, well crafted, and fun to play gameplay through Coliseum. So I think we're closer than we might think, but I did want to share that like macro mindset with you all. As you look at other ecosystems, you look at other games, I'm not trying to say we're better than everybody, but I am trying to say I'm damn proud of the community and the build that we have and the team that we have. And that even when we have differences of opinions, we come together, we find a solution, and we move on. We continue to build. It does kind of make me sad to see others in the space not do the same, but you could conclude that it is good for those that continue to evolve when others might have missteps. I don't wish that upon anybody, but I do want to say, let's give ourselves credit. We're in our third year, or we've had 3 years. I guess we're entering our fourth year. We're on the verge of our biggest series of releases that combine everything ever, having obtained the largest deal we've ever had. All signs point to bullish. So I have been, I will remain, and hopefully the facts all make you out there just as bullish as we are. And I hope you have a good week.
Bullish.
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 We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
DeFi Kingdoms, where you can summon heroes, trade with other players, quest, and fight challenging enemies in a fantasy world brought to life in pixel art animation. Command